ultra distance running. You have hip pain, hip flexor pain, abductor pain. Watch this.
Our first caller is Justin from Florida.
Justin, what's happening, man? How can we help you?
Yes, sir. First of all, Justin, great name. Second of all, I noticed you've been wearing a Cardinals hat, and since you have been, our team's been in last place. We haven't had that happen since 1990.
Take it off.
So
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Anyway, so I dabble in ultra running before David Goggins made it popular. But I've had like a trending issue happen. Like around mile 12 to 15, I think it's my abductors or my hip flexors seem to go out every single time. So I just revert to having to like power hike the rest of my my runs. And I was just wanting to know what exercises can I do to strengthen them? I mean, I do like the butterfly kicks. I've done the abductor machines. I know you guys say that you're not really a big fan of those. I squat, I do all the right things. I weightlift 7 days a week, but as far as just my overall running at mile 15, it seems to shut down. I'm able to finish most of my runs, but like I did a 100-miler last year, and at mile 50, I was done. So anything you guys can do to help, I'd appreciate it.
You said hip flexors or abductors?
Yeah.
So is this in the front?
Yeah, it's in the front, my groin. It's the muscle. At first, it used to be my IT band. I seem to work through that pain. Then now it's just every time I lift my legs, it's almost like it's just these sharp pains are going through my entire body.
Okay.
And it's so painful. It's like one of those races I felt like sobbing. It was so bad. So that's why I kind of revert to having a power hike.
Yeah. So there's probably an imbalance that's going on, and I would guess that it has to do with your core and core stability. And once your core starts to fatigue, that's when you're probably starting to develop this issue. Now you can train the hip flexors and the abductors and the adductors, and you can work on hip stability, which I think you should. I think you should do hip stability movements. I think you should use the sled to do lateral movement.
Yeah.
But I do think that your core, it's probably related to your core. And I would look at the deep muscles of the core. I would look at all the ways you could develop core stability. For ultra running, I've trained a couple athletes that do not 100-milers, but they would do 50-milers. And it was always related to the core, and they would experience similar issues. And when we got the core stronger, more stabilized, it made a big difference. And then the second thing I'll say is technique. So when you're doing something with this much fatigue, the technique starts to change when you start to fatigue, and then some muscles get overworked, and that's when you develop an issue. So I don't know if you've worked with a running coach, but a running coach can identify technique. I wouldn't be able to identify them. I'm not an expert in running, but they would be able to identify technique issues and address those, and oftentimes that even makes a big difference.
You could also stop being such an asshole and running so much too, Justin.
Yeah.
That's an
Well, I don't run often. I
advice.
play hockey occasionally, but no, it's once a year I do these races, maybe twice a year tops.
I mean, I'm just teasing you, but I do think that, I mean, that could also be the problem though. You sounds like you train more like a power lifter, bodybuilder type of training routine, but then you go out and you do these crazy ass 100-mile runs. I mean, if you want to be good at the 100-mile runs, you probably should train the body accordingly to bulletproof your body for that and run more consistently to be able to handle that, but to train more like a bodybuilder or power lifter for a majority of your year, and then to go out and do these runs, it's kind of expected to feel the way you're probably feeling. That's my 2 cents on that.
You know, it's some people have found benefit from running in water for issues like this because of the resistance that the water creates when you lift the leg, and have to, and there's less stability, but there's more resistance in the water compared
there's
to
less impact. So you get that constant resistance. I used to work with a track team. We do that. We do with the parachute, so you get a little bit of resistance too with your acceleration and rubber bands. But yeah, to me it sounds like. And so, how often do you actually like run and practice that leading up to one of these races?
It's like a 4-month build up to like the longer runs. When I start, like the 50K is the smallest run I'll go on. That's probably like a month build up. That's not too bad. But for like the 100, it's a 4-month build up, and it's just, really like I was doing core stuff, which is kind of nuts that I don't know. I mean, I do super long planks and I do all the right things. It's just, it's like every single time. my groin just decides it just wants to blow out. And
I didn't
don't.
say so. So you got to understand, it's not that your core is weak; is that there's an imbalance, and there's probably a technique change that's causing this
Yeah,
problem.
especially fatigue is going to really like hone in on that imbalance.
Yeah, and so this is going to get very specific because you're talking about high performance. Like you're good up to 50 miles. Okay, most people are not good up to 50 miles, so it's not like, hey, you got a weak core. You probably have obviously you have a very strong core. But there's something going on where there's an imbalance between the communication of the muscles that are involved with this kind of physical endeavor, especially when you start to get fatigued. A running coach is going to be able to identify technique issues, and they may also be able to identify some of the core stability issues. And that's where I would point you, just because of the level that you're training. Like if you're like, hey, I run a mile and this happens, it would be a lot easier. But you're going 100 miles. So this is when small things become big things. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, yes, it does. Yes, it does. It helps.
Okay. So that's what I would do. Do you have MAPS Prime Pro? Because there's some really good hip and low back movements in there that I think might
You
actually
think
help
you'd
as
actually
well.
benefit from No BS too, because some of the stuff you have in there?
No BS is like about building
much.
the traditional like obliques and abs. He probably has that. This is more of a stability strength issue in relation
deep core
to
muscles.
in relation to your legs and your hip flexors and all that stuff, which is different. That's different than just strength, being an issue. I'm assuming you said you work out your core quite a bit, so that's not something you skimp on, right?
No, I mean, after every day's like about hour 15 of weightlifting, I do some ab exercises for like aesthetics looks. I don't do it for any. I mean, I used to be in the military, so I used to train it more, but I just try to maintain what I do have. I'm 36 now, so nothing too crazy on the abs.
Yeah, you're looking at stability exercises, suitcase carries, what's it called? Counter rotation movements. Traditional like build
Contralateral.
my core muscles exercises are probably not going to benefit you a ton at this point. All right. But yeah, Prime Pro, look at the hip movements in there because I think you need to do those as well.
Okay, cool.
Do you have Prime Pro? All
No, I do not.
right, we'll send that to you, Justin.
Okay, but anyway, I've been a big fan. I don't know when you guys started, but I've been listening for like 7 years now.
Wow.
I mean, back when I was in the military. I mean, maybe it was not that long, but it's been like 6 or 7 years back when you guys were just starting off, and it's been fantastic. And whenever I can let people know about you guys, I do, and we love what you guys do as a whole community out here. So
Thank
keep
you.
doing it.
Champion.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Justin.
Thanks, bro.
Really appreciate that.
All right, man, and take off that Cardinals hat.
Hey, it's my high school hat. It's not even a Cardinal hat. People
Everybody,
need to know,
everybody
yeah.
thinks it's a Cardinals hat. It's actually his
we
high
ripped
school.
off the logo, so don't worry. We're not putting a jinx out there for you.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Thank
I'm
you
an A's
very
fan.
much.
Take it easy, Justin.
Go A's.
You too.
Yeah, this is it's funny. So I trained a few high level endurance athletes, quite a few actually.
Yeah.
And when I would train their legs, so these were runners, right? I would train their legs, and then the day after, they would go on these long runs. And I'd ask them, "How was your performance affected?" It's a little bit, not big deal. If I trained their core the day before, they were ruined. They would always tell me, "I cannot run properly if my
It's
core."
keeping everything together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they got
It's
the
vital.
stamina in the legs, but it's that core, that communication between the upper and lower body.
Well, also keep in mind what you kind of alluded to too, that when you're running 50 to 100 miles, this is no longer like this is not cardio. This is not like leisurely running. This is like a sport now.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like he trains more like
Pressuring the hinges everywhere.
like a bodybuilder. I mean, he looks like it. He looks very muscular. He does not look
for a super distance run.
Yeah, he does not look like an endurance. And so if most of your training and diet is built around, like being this kind of bodybuilder looking dude or power lifter guy, and then you also like on the side pick up 50 miles, and you could get away with that when you're 25 to 30. Dude's he's 35 now. So, I mean, you get to a point where if you want to continue to do a specialized sport like that, and it's that important to you to keep up, that your training now needs to be geared around complementing that. It's not as easy as like, hey, when I was 25, I could play hockey, I could look like a bodybuilder, and then I could go pick up a 100-mile run, like no big deal. It's like, no, you're not that
Dude
point
probably just does it to flex and be tough.
Totally.
And that's it. And I can totally identify with that. But, at a certain point, you got to be like, is this good for me? Yeah.
I mean, when you say it's around this age too, right? Around mid-30s, if you're going to still train a high-level sport, which I would consider ultra marathon running a high-level sport, you really need to start to hone in on like, okay, you can play basketball or football into your 40s. Obviously, we have professional athletes that do that, but so much of their training now becomes geared around protecting their body and bulletproofing their body. And so it then begins to, the training regimen begins to look like that and less like, oh, I go squat and deadlift and power lift and do all these moves.
I mean, the bottom line is the higher your performance is, the closer you get to high performance, the more small things become big things.
Big things. Yep.
So little tiny deviations in form and technique, they don't make a big difference until you start to really push things, and then they become big problems. And like you said, up until 50 miles, I'm fine, then or whatever, and then 50 miles and I'm dead. Like most people can't walk 50 miles, let alone run 50 miles.